G'day Bomber fans, the trade news, I love it. It's going to really start ramping up from here. These trade update videos will come regularly now. We have quite a few guys possibly leaving the club as we know. I have updates there on most of them for you. We now have guys that we may be welcoming in as well now. We have genuine targets, so there is lots to talk about. And a few of these targets that we have, I like. So stay tuned to the second half of the video for me to talk about them. And also, none of this is my news. I'm not going to claim exclusive or breaking news like Scoops does. I'm simply relaying the info I hear from trusted trade experts for you. So let's get into it. I just love this time of the year. Alrighty, starting with concrete, genuine news. Todd Goldstein has signed a one-year deal. He signed it last week. Plenty are unhappy with that. I get that re-signing a 35-year-old looks a bit funny. I back it though. I think it had to be done. If we delisted Goldstein, we would just need to bring in another guy like him, and there aren't many experienced backup rucks around. If he rucks more than Brian next year, I'll throw fists. I'll agree with you guys, but I can safely say he won't. Brian proved himself late last year. He took Goldstein's spot in the team, so Goldie has signed a one-year deal, and there is belief that he'll transition into a coaching role as well, seeing as he is pretty much already coaching the younger guys anyway. Ben Hobbs is probably staying put, but it's hard to tell this early. The interest is apparently limited. Collingwood have been linked, but they have their hands full right now with bigger fish, so if they were to make offers, it would probably be after they have clarity with Perryman and other players. In fact, if they get Perryman, it's probably tough to then bring in Hobbs just because list spots are gold and the salary caps are getting tighter with these big deals. From what people are saying, and I'm reading between the lines a bit here, so I could definitely be wrong, but it does seem like the club wouldn't mind the idea of a trade if it brought in some valuable draft picks. That is the case with quite a few players from other teams too. This is common. It's a really good draft that clubs want to be active in, so there is every chance players across the whole competition are forced out in when other years they wouldn't be. So I still think he stays on his contract just because I don't think we would get anything that great in return for him. The first round draftee is only really worth that pick if they have proven themselves or are early enough into their career to prove to teams that they could prove themselves. I think it would have to be a second rounder, and clubs would argue less than that because trades will be really hard to get done because of how valuable draft picks are this year. So I think Hobbs stays just because getting a trade done could be difficult. Jayden Laverde. Now, he is one of two players at the club that were told to assess their options around the comp if they wanted more security. So both Laverde and Stringer are on the trade table. This means clubs will not come in early for them. That is an easy way to increase trade value by coming in hard before the trade period. I'm sure there are clubs that will come for them. Carlton and St Kilda were reportedly keen on Laverde, or at least have asked the question at one of the club meetings recently. I believe that's where the news started. I could be wrong. But right now, there won't be heavy interest. I'm 100% certain we will hear more about Laverde in a week or two. That is, unless the club decides they want to hold him to the contract. But as of right now, it's pretty quiet with Laverde. Jake Stringer. Now, this is one that will definitely unfold next week. This is a story that just could blow up in a day. It's bubbling a bit right now. He said he wants to play he's played his last game at Essendon. No one has come out and denied that yet. He could have put this to bed if he wanted to stay. He hasn't yet, so I think it's clear he wants to leave. Collingwood were keen, or members of Collingwood, but there is a divide as to how needed he is. McRae wanted him, other coaches didn't. There are questions with his professionalism and off-field relationships, I guess. Sydney are linked, but they are in a grand final fight this weekend, so there will not be any trade news around them until the season is done. Expect that one to be confirmed or denied next week after the grand final. And like with Laverde, clubs won't want to come too hard too early because that's just going to increase his trade value and get Essendon a better pick in return. I think Stringer leaves. There is too much going on that makes me think the club wouldn't want him back either. That is the vibe I'm getting, so we will see what happens next week. I'm pretty sure we'll be talking about this one next week. Alrighty, let's get on to the juicy stuff, what you guys want to hear, incoming players. This one isn't very juicy. Josh Rotham is an unrestricted free agent, not a great player. He has links to the clubs. A big reason for that is because of Craig Votso and one of our new recruiting managers from West Coast. We are keen on him if Laverde goes. People have to realise we want to protect our draft hand for this year. We can't bring in stars and get Kako and other draftees. We're not going to be attacking guys like Houston. I'm much more content with us sitting out this trade period if it means we're active in the draft. It's a very good draft, and the only way to do that is to bring in cheap players. If Laverde does leave, we need another key defender. There is no sugarcoating it. We have absolutely no depth back there. We can't go in relying on Zach Reed with no backup. and no one is cheaper than an unrestricted free agent. Josh Rotham is an unrestricted free agent. He is not a great player. Some would argue he's not even a good player, but he is cheap and available. Some are asking why trade Laverde if it means we're just going to bring in a worse player, and that's a fair question. We need draft picks. Laverde, in Scott's eyes, is not a first-team player. I think that was proven in round one when Zach Reed was ahead of him in the first team. In fact, Laverde was behind 2 injured players, or 3 injured players in round one. He only really played as much as he did because Reed, Ridley and Baldwin were injured so much, and Hayes wasn't really ready to play at the top level. So we're theoretically losing a depth player. If Laverde goes, we're losing a depth player and replacing him with a worse depth player. But losing Laverde gives us draft capital, and bringing in Rotham costs absolutely nothing. I don't love this as an idea, but if Laverde leaves, I would understand it. I don't expect to be seeing Rotham play if he does come in, or much, or another key defensive replacement. It might not even be Rotham, but don't expect them to be playing if we have a fit list. The news here is that we're interested in Rotham as a backup, but only if Laverde leaves. Malcolm Roses Jr., we were keen on him. We've been keen on him twice before. Electric small forward at Gold Coast. He'll likely be staying at the Suns, though. They pretty much told him to get fit or get out, paraphrasing, but that's the vibe. Get your act together here or go somewhere else. Adelaide were keen. We've been keen for years, but he is staying put with Hardwick. Would have been handy, but also, as I said last time, not sure if trading small forwards is the vibe if we're picking up Kako in the draft. He can play round 1 next year, Kako, and we should put time into him, so no Rosas for 2025. Riley Beveridge says we are keen on Finn Maginness. The Hawthorn role player is out of contract next year, so that's going to be tricky. I'll talk about that in a bit. We want hard two-way runners at the club. Maginness is on the outer there a tad. He played well late in the year, but he was in and out of the team. Hawthorn will need draft picks, seeing as they're going to throw them away for Tom Barras, so there is every chance they want to get a deal done for Maginness, who's not really a great player, just a good player. I've actually liked him a lot in the last few months. I thought he was a one-trick pony with his tagging last year. I was pretty critical of him, not here but elsewhere. He was kind of only really known for his tagging, and if he wasn't tagging, he was out of the team, but I thought he was one of their best players in that semi-final against Port. I watch Hawthorn really closely. Aside from Essendon, they're probably the team I watch the most in the AFL. They have so many terrific two-way runners, and that is something we really lack. Maginness is not a good ball user. He's not a trustworthy player with ball in hand. Maybe harsh, but he isn't a star. What he is a player who plays to a system and does things that often go unnoticed. He's better than Setterfield. He's better than a few of our mids, to be honest. I would much rather him on the list over Will Setterfield. The issue is getting a trade done. He's contracted. We can't afford to throw away draft picks. I'm sure Hawthorn want a pick in this year's draft, not a future. So I don't see how this one gets done unless we offload quite a few other players and have quite a few draft picks available. I know Plenty wouldn't want this to happen. I honestly think he would be a better option on our list over quite a few guys already there. People complaining have to realise he was genuinely good in that final series, and we do need players like him. There is a reason we can't defend the ground, and Maginness is bad in other areas, but very good as that hard-working two-way running midfielder. I doubt it happens though. Finally, this is a funny one because I was actually going to upload a video about potential delisted free agents today before I saw the news about these links, and then I put this video out instead. I talked about Jackson Pryor in that video, so he's out of contract and in limbo a bit. Unfortunately, he is a young player at a premiership contending team, and that's often hard to break into that team. Brisbane is set to bring in a few more academy and father-son boys, which means they need list spots. Unfortunately, they have quite a few good defenders there as well, so Pryor may be forced out, and Essendon are watching this situation pretty closely. We obviously have no defensive depth right now. If there is an injury, we're screwed. So we have to bring in general defenders somehow. Jake Kelly left a massive hole down there. And Jackson Pryor is a pretty similar player to Kelly in quite a few ways. He's a medium-sized defender who's all right in the air. He has a massive left boot on him, so he can play on that left side as that outlet that Kelly and Heppel used to play. WA born, but he's used to playing in another state. I think this makes perfect sense. I saw his face on the Gettable board on the episode of Gettable today, and I just knew that they were going to raise our name. I almost wish I released my video yesterday, but I'll have a new one out tomorrow where I talk about some different options now. I think this all depends on whether or not Pryor signs a new contract or if Brisbane give him one. If he does, we probably don't go for him, and if we would instead go to someone like Riley Bonner or Darcy McPherson or someone instead. But if he is delisted, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we pick him up, and I wouldn't mind it. I like the look of him. He's not a great player. He's not a star. He's not a first-team player. But we need depth, and he is young, semi-experienced, and has looked alright. Okay, so that is that. Trade update done. Going to be plenty more of these to come. Cheers for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all the trade news. Going to be lots coming out in the next few weeks. Like, subscribe, and go Bombers.